The cold, rain-slicked streets of the city felt unusually heavy as my taxi pulled into the luxury high-rise. I had just closed the biggest deal of my career, finishing my business trip a day early. For 10 years, I had been the sole provider, the iron woman of the boardroom, all to ensure my husband, Julian, could live his dreams without a single financial worry. I was clutching my suitcase, imagining the look of pure joy on his face when I walked through the door, but my heart skipped a beat when I reached my private parking spot, P15, a space that cost me $75,000. There, parked defiantly in my spot, was a flashy red Mini Cooper. I knew that car. It belonged to Clara, my younger brother's wife. A cold shiver of intuition crawled up my spine, whispering a warning I wasn't ready to hear. If you believe a woman's intuition is never wrong, hit like right now. The elevator ride to the 18th floor felt like an eternity. I used my fingerprint to unlock the door, the soft click sounding like a death knell in the silent foyer. The apartment was bathed in a ghostly gloom, the familiar scent of my lavender oil now tainted by a heavy, cloying perfume. I kicked off my heels, my heart hammering against my ribs, when a sound from our master bedroom froze the blood in my veins. It wasn't the TV. It was the rhythmic, jagged gasps of a man and the high-pitched moans of a woman. Creeping toward the cracked door, I saw them. There, on the 800 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets I had bought with my last bonus, Julian was entwined with Clara, my husband and my sister-in-law. My world didn't just crumble, it vanished, replaced by a cold, white-hot vacuum of absolute disbelief. A primal scream clawed at my throat, but I forced it down, swallowing the bitter taste of my own shattered heart. In that darkness, the impulsive woman who wanted to tear them apart died, and the ruthless CEO took her place. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, but my aim was steady. I watched through the glowing screen as 2 minutes of raw, disgusting footage captured the death of my 10-year marriage. Those 120 seconds were the funeral for every late night I had worked and every sacrifice I had made for a man who saw me as nothing more than a bank account. I didn't storm in. I didn't create a scene. I simply gathered the digital ammunition I needed to bury them both. I turned away silently, a ghost in my own home, leaving behind my past and carrying a future fueled by pure, calculated revenge. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to the only person who could help me turn my pain into power. Evelyn, my best friend and the city's most lethal divorce attorney, met me at her door with a glass of scotch and a gaze like sharpened steel. As we watched the 2-minute video, she didn't offer empty pity. Instead, she grabbed my hand and spoke with chilling authority. "Amelia, if you scream now, you lose. You lose your dignity, and more importantly, you lose the empire you built." She outlined a brutal strategy. I had to return to that house and deliver the performance of a lifetime. I had to smile at the man who disgusted me and play the doting wife while we secretly built a legal cage around his assets. The hunt required a calm heart. I wasn't going back home as a victim, I was going back as an undercover assassin. Walking back into that apartment was like stepping onto a stage under a burning spotlight. I forced my face into a mask of exhaustion, greeting Julian with a fake smile that felt like acid in my mouth. "I finished early just for you, honey," I lied, watching the flicker of panic in his eyes as he scrambled to hide his guilt. He thought he was safe, but I was cataloging every detail of his failure. My eyes locked onto the bed. The luxurious gray silk was gone, replaced by cheap pastel sheets he'd pulled from the back of the closet. Then the smell hit me. The air was thick with J'adore by Dior, the signature scent of my sister-in-law, Clara. It was the very perfume I had bought her for her birthday. He was standing in a cloud of his own betrayal, yet he still dared to reach out and touch me. Subscribe now to see exactly how Amelia unmasks these monsters and takes back her life. Midnight arrived, and Julian's rhythmic snores became the soundtrack to my investigation. Holding my breath, I moved like a shadow, taking his limp hand to press his thumb against the glowing smartphone. The screen yielded instantly, revealing a digital wasteland of lies. I didn't find just messages. I found a trail of financial blood. Deep within a hidden folder, I accessed our joint investment app, the one he claimed was bleeding due to a market crash. The truth was far more sinister. There were no losses, only transfers. He had been systematically draining our life savings to fund Clara's lifestyle. $10,000 for a diamond necklace, $5,000 for rent, and countless luxury dinners, all labeled as business expenses or emergency repairs. While I was skipping meals to save our future, he was using my hard-earned sweat to buy his mistress's loyalty. The man I loved wasn't just a cheat, he was a common thief. The next morning, I served breakfast with a smile that never reached my eyes. I watched Julian's hands tremble as he reached for his coffee, the smell of his guilt filling the room. "Honey," I began, my voice as light as a summer breeze. "The doorman mentioned something strange. He said he saw you leaving with the car in the middle of the night several times while I was away. He even thought he saw you near Clara's neighborhood." I watched the color drain from his face as he nearly choked on his food. He started stammering, a pathetic excuse about sleepwalking and stress falling from his lips. I simply tilted my head, feigning deep, loving concern while tightening the invisible noose around his neck. I wanted him to breathe in the fear. I wanted him to wake up every day wondering if today was the day his perfect glass house would finally shatter into pieces. The brown envelope from the private investigator felt like lead in my hands. I retreated to a secluded cafe, the city's bustle fading into a dull roar as I spread the glossy photographs across the table. These weren't just snapshots, they were a catalog of depravity. While I was battling for market share, Julian and Clara had turned their lunch breaks into a routine of illicit passion. There they were, tucked away in discreet suburban motels and holding hands in dimly lit bistros, looking at each other with a tenderness they had long denied their spouses. But the sharpest sting wasn't for myself. It was for Marcus. My kind, hard-working brother was out on a dusty construction site, breaking his back to build a future for a woman who was currently destroying his family with his own brother-in-law. This wasn't just infidelity, it was a cold-blooded assassination of our family bonds. The Sunday family dinner at my parents' house was the perfect stage for my final act. As the smell of home-cooked stew filled the air, I sat across from Sophia, whose neck was adorned with the glittering white gold necklace, the very one bought with $10,000 of my stolen sweat. Marcus was beaming, peeling shrimp for his devoted wife, blissfully unaware of the snake coiled beside him. I waited for a lull in the conversation, then leaned forward, my eyes locking onto the diamond's cold sparkle. "Clara, that necklace is breathtaking," I remarked, my voice dripping with honeyed poison. "It looks so expensive. Did Marcus buy that for you?" The silence that followed was deafening. Clara's hand flew to her throat, her face turning a ghostly pale, while Julian choked on his wine, unable to meet a single pair of eyes. The cowardice in the room was palpable as they scrambled to weave a web of pathetic lies right in front of the people who loved them most. The time for games was over. In a final, chilling confrontation, I laid the evidence on the table like a dealer revealing a winning hand. The bank statements, the PI photos, and the 2-minute video that shattered their wall of lies. I watched as Julian and Clara's world collapsed. They didn't just lose their dignity, they lost every cent they had tried to steal from my legacy. As I walked away from the wreckage of my marriage, a profound sense of peace washed over me. I realized that kindness without boundaries is just an invitation for parasites, and true happiness only begins when you have the courage to cut the cancer out of your life. I am no longer a victim. I am free. Do you support her fierce decision to reclaim her life? Please share this story to empower others.